Hey everyone, welcome back to the Bronco Garage. Today we're going to tell you everything you need to know about drum brakes on an early Bronco.
So the first place that you want to start when you are talking about your drum brakes, or really any of your brakes, is you want to start up here at the master cylinder. Now I have a screwdriver here with some tape on the end because it's kind of hard to get the cap of the master cylinder off, and you don't want to use a screwdriver and just like ding up your master cylinder every time you do it. So put a little bit of tape on your screwdriver and use that so that it doesn't scuff everything up. Take the cap off, and what you're doing here is you want to check for fluid. So in the master cylinder there should be enough fluid that it's not all the way to the brim, but that it's not super low. Now the thing that you're looking for here is you're looking for fluid that is a clear yellowish color. Now if you pop this open and it looks brown or red or just rusty and nasty, then you're gonna wanna change your fluid. You're gonna wanna cycle it out. With your master cylinder, we have another video and I want you to check it out, especially if you're looking for a new master cylinder, because we break down the main differences between master cylinders and let you know which master cylinder that you are gonna want to buy for your Bronco. Now, after we've checked the fluid levels in our master cylinder, we've checked to make sure there's no leaks around here, that we aren't seeing any spots where our paint has basically been eaten away by our brake fluid, because you got to make sure this stuff's going to eat the paint. Then you want to go down, and down here is your proportioning valve, your metering valve. Depending on what kind of Bronco, what setup you have, it's either going to be a metering valve or a proportioning valve. Now stock Broncos came with a metering valve, and what that did was that just made sure that there was equal amounts of pressure going to the back brakes, going to the front brakes. The metering valve was the thing that would trigger the brake light on your dash. So this is a good thing that you want to check, like especially if your brake light's not working, it's probably that metering valve. And if you're upgrading to disc brakes, you're going to want to get a proportioning valve instead of a metering valve, because that's going to make the levels different and all that kind of good stuff. And we'll talk about that in our proportioning valve, metering valve tech video, so make sure to check that out as well.
All right, so now you've checked your master cylinder and you've checked your proportioning valve. Now it's time to move on to your brakes down on the wheel. Now you're going to want to put your Bronco up on jack stands so you can free spin the tire. Now this is also a good time to check out our video for wheel bearing install and knuckles. On this, you're checking your free spin, and you actually don't want it to spin this freely. You want it to have some drag. Now we're going to show you how to put some drag on those by using what we call a brake spoon. You can also use a flathead screwdriver, but this tool works really well. Now the best thing to do is get down underneath, and there's going to be a sight plug that's going to have a rubber boot in it, and you're going to take that sight plug out. Now the big thing here is when you use your brake spoon, you're going to want to go ahead and spin that star wheel up. You want to go up, and as you go up, you're going to feel the drag of your brakes starting to catch the drum as it's spinning. Now you're going to get it to the point where your wheel can still be turned by hand, but it's got drag on it, so it stops very quickly. So once you get down to the point where you start feeling that drag, you're going to go to the other side and you're going to make it match just the same. What you're trying to do is match the amount of drag on one side to the other. The great thing about this is that this works the same way for the rear. You want to match the amount of drag on each wheel so they're all the same. So once you go and drive your Bronco and you start feeling it pull from one side to the other, that's what we call brake steer. That means that one drum has been over adjusted, or it's adjusted more than the other side. Now you can actually go and adjust these back down.
Now I'm going to stop you right here. If you're doing this and it just feels like it's not going right, or something doesn't feel right, or just stuff isn't like working like Michael said, you're gonna need to take your tire off and your drum off and look at the internals of your drum. When I was messing with my brakes on my 1975 Bronco, I ended up taking the drum off, and the previous owner had put the wrong wheel cylinder in the drums. All right, so this is what the inside of the drum brakes should look like. And I also took off the hub so that you can just get a better view of all of this. But here is the wheel cylinder, and so it was moving around in here and shifting around, and what that was doing was it was wearing down on this brake pad, but this brake pad wasn't even touching. So those are things that you want to look out for and you want to watch for. Now, an important thing that you want to look at is you want to make sure that your brake pads still look good, that there's still pad on there, that it's not rubbing down to nothingness. The other thing you want to look for is any scoring or any marks in here that looks like there's grooves being put in here by your actual drum. Now, we also talked about and showed you from the back how this guy works, and this is basically the inside of it. Like, this is what you are turning with the spoon back there to spread these brake pads out or bring them back in. And another thing you want to make sure of when you're rebuilding this whole kit, it's kind of hard to see, but the bigger brake pad needs to go towards the back of the Bronco, where the smaller brake pad, the one that comes down to here, needs to go towards the front of the Bronco.
So John just showed you the internals of this drum brake, but sometimes they get stuck and they don't want to move. First thing we're going to do is we're going to back off the star wheel adjuster that actually puts the shoes up against the drums. Normally you would move the star wheel up in order to adjust the shoes towards the drum, so now I'm going to move the star wheel down. And there's a safety tab that actually locks the wheel and prevents it from moving down, so that's when this little screwdriver comes into place, where you have to push that little tang away from the wheel and then start cranking it down. And as you're doing that, you're actually going to feel for, you know, the drum, whether it's still up against the shoe, and then once it's fully relieved from there, you back it off a little more, then you come over and you're going to actually start pulling on the drum and trying to pull it away and off the hub. Remember that this drum is actually locating off of the knurl or the shoulder on your lug studs. That's also locating off of your hub. So it's actually bound up against these 5 points and the center as well. If you don't care about your drums, then fine, you can, you know, do whatever you want. But what I would suggest is using some type of punch. I've got a brass drift punch here, and I'm going to put it up against the edge, and I'm going to slowly work this edge, you know, about, say, every 4 or 5 inches. I'm going to move the drum, and I'm going to just start hammering this drum and pulling it away from the studs and the hub. There you go. Now, obviously, I've got new shoes and new drums here, so I'm not going to be fighting it probably as hard as some of you other will. So if you've got some drums and shoes seized together, probably most likely with rust, then there's going to have to take some more persuasive measurements in order to get that off. Now, you could get a bigger hammer. That might work. You could get a bigger drift punch. But if all of that just fails, you really want to consider going to the grinding wheel. What I would suggest is actually cutting the drum off completely. You're actually going to take a Sharpie, you're going to make a mark right here, and you're going to cut it across this face, preferably right here all the way across, and then spin this 180 degrees and make another mark and cut that off, or at least cut about halfway through. And then you're going to take a chisel and hammer, and you're just going to try to break it apart in 2 pieces. Just keep in mind that there are some things here that you really don't want to damage. Drums, they're replaceable. You can buy them at the auto parts store. But the hub, if you're going to be using the James Duff budget disc brake swap kit, you definitely don't want to damage that. You don't want to hit it hard with a hammer or anything and warp or egg shape this hub. And the backing plate. Believe it or not, there's guys out there that would like to use this backing plate. So try not to put any grinding marks in it as well. Well, John, you know, there's one more thing that we really want to make sure you do before you go out and start testing your brakes, is make sure you bleed them right.
Yeah.
Actually, we've got a video you can watch to show you how to properly do that too. But you know, the thing is that I really feel that drum brakes, when all properly dialed in, they work really good.
They do.
You know, you probably don't want to use them with 35s, but if you use a booster with 33s, there's no reason they shouldn't do their job.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, the bigger tire size you go, the more stopping power you need with your brakes. So definitely, if you're looking to continue getting bigger tires, going with a bigger lift, then definitely look at some of the disc brake options, which...
Well, that's right. We've actually got a video we'd like you to watch on how to install disc brakes.
Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Make sure to subscribe and make sure to check out some of these other videos.
Definitely.